CIUT 89.5, Toronto.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of CIUT-FM.
Hi, I'm Mark Tara, producer and host of Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Daniel Garber, the movies for CIUT Critic Circle.
Hi, this is Donna G from The More the Merrier, and this is CIUT at TIFF 2022.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good evening and welcome. It's the opening night.
Tonight, we thank you. I am so humbled and so grateful to be here this evening.
I'm extremely excited to be here. Thank you all for holy shit. There's a lot of y'all.
I'm very proud to be here tonight, and I'm so grateful that you joined us.
Don't stop till you get enough.
Hello, Toronto.
Happy Halloween, Michael.
Can we talk about this? Toronto, the best of them all.
If you ever feel love, the best place to watch films is TIFF.
I want to thank Toronto because you have always honored, celebrated, exalted female directors.
The warmth and the love that you gave me is something I will never forget in my life.
It's so exciting to be here at Toronto in this gorgeous theater.
This feels like Christmas Day.
Thanks to you for coming.
This is truly a very special evening for me.
This is why we do what we do, you know?
I love this festival and it's an honor to be back.
Behind me is what we call society, what we see in there every day, and what we have on the screen. Let's keep on doing movies about us. We're making pictures about what's happening today in society. Thank you for coming.
This is Donna G, and welcome to the second episode of Team CIUT at TIFF 2022. Joining me are film critic Daniel Garber of culturalmining.com, and his reviews can be heard on CIUT's Critic Circle, which airs Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Also joining me is Mark Tara, producer and host of CIUT's Rainbow Country, which gives voice to the LGBT community and beyond. Rainbow Country is one of the highest-ranking LGBT syndicated podcasts. And I'm Donna G, host and producer of the More the Merrier Arts show that aims to level the playing field when it comes to experiencing film and theater and the arts at large. Coming up on this special broadcast of Team CIUT at TIFF 2022, film critic Daniel Garber will be sharing his interview with Gail Maurice, the director of the Canadian LGBT film ROSIE. And Mark Tara chats with award-winning producer Chris Birkett about the documentary Buffy Sainte-Marie, Carry It On. As for me, recently I recorded my first Q&A. What does that mean? It means that instead of having my usual Zoom or in-person interview, I sent Maya and the Wave director Stephanie Johns my questions, and she recorded her answers and sent them back to me. This is what happens when your director is finishing up her documentary for its world premiere, dealing with flight cancellations, and you're still working your day job.
Hi, this is Stephanie. I'm so sorry we weren't able to connect in person, but thank you for making it work.
My pleasure, Stephanie, and I'm so glad you're able to do this Q&A with me. Now, I'm watching the film Maya and the Wave, and I'm not a surfer. You are a surfer. But I was scared every time you showed off the cliff and those waves at Nazaré. What were your first thoughts when you saw the waves in Portugal?
The first time I went to Nazaré, I was just in awe. I fell in love with it. It's so spectacular. And you walk out on that cliff and your eyes sort of need to adjust to realize how big the waves actually are and the scale of it all. It's spectacular. The mist from the waves actually lands on you in the cliff, and I just fell in love with it. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a pretty spectacular place to spend time and make a film.
Stephanie, I'm curious to know how working as a director of photography on the documentary Venus and Serena help you with the filming of Maya and the Wave?
Yeah, so I worked as a cinematographer on the documentary, and that was an awesome experience for me to understand how to work with athletes and understanding their schedules, how they think, their mindset, thinking about when they are open to being filmed and when not, and also to help me understand the pressures that are on athletes pretty consistently and how to work with that and not get in the way at the wrong time. So that was a great experience, and I think it gave me some good insight into figuring out how and when to film with Maya.
It seems as if both you and Maya Gabeira's life is one big metaphor for surfing. The personal highs, the lows, the moments of joy happening alongside the moments of sadness. You had a leak in your apartment, your sister was in treatment for cancer, her husband died in a surfing accident, and Maya was riding high with Red Bull sponsoring her, and she was a surfing champion, and then a major accident stalled her career and left her with anxiety. Anyone would have understood if you stepped back from the film. Why didn't you?
Yeah, so there were a lot of highs and lows in the last decade. It was a 10-year project making this film, both in Maya's life and in my life as well. And I think one of the main reasons that I stuck with it and felt it was important to see the film through was because I really believe in Maya and the message that she has to share. I felt that she's a phenomenal athlete who was not receiving the recognition and the respect that she deserved because she's a woman in a very male-dominated sport. And I didn't want to let her down. I wanted to make a great film about someone who really deserved to have a great film made about them. And I think it's an important story for women and girls to be able to see a woman who, struggles against the patriarchy and ultimately succeeds in achieving her dream and surfing the biggest wave in the world. So that was my main motivation for sticking with it, and I'm glad I did. I'm happy that we have a film now and we can share her story in documentary form.
I thought I knew what to expect in your documentary, and I got that. I mean, it's a documentary about surfing, so beautiful cinematography, incredibly high, frightening waves, a beautiful athletic surfer with an amazing talent. But what I didn't expect was the intimacy that you were able to capture with Maya and her family, especially the introduction of her activist father, Fernando Gabeira, and her very strong mother, Gail Maurice. The film even veered into mental health with Maya's anxiety after the accident. How are you able to win their confidence?
Yeah, Maya is actually a very open and candid person, and that's some of the qualities that I love about her. She was very welcoming when I first asked to come and film her back, 10 years ago when she took me on a first surf trip in Mexico. And I remember her telling me that, she had a therapist and she had to go for an appointment with a therapist. And I thought, wow, that's very honest and direct. That's not something, that an American person would tell you off the bat. And I don't know if this is true, but I wonder if Brazilian people are more comfortable talking about their feelings and mental health than Americans. That's one of my theories, at least. But I also think Maya is a very candid and open person. And I remember telling her in the beginning of the filmmaking process, I said, "Look, I'm going to be around for a long time. This is a long road we're going to be on." And she said, "Yeah, I get it." And I don't think she realized that it was going to be years and years, much less a decade. But with all that time comes a lot of trust, and so I think that is one of the strengths of the film, is that we had a lot of trust in each other, and Maya was willing to share a lot of her personal life, which I think creates a very true and honest, authentic story.
The sexism in the documentary is absolutely infuriating. Everyone thinks of surfers as being, laid back individuals, but hearing her male counterparts talk about Maya as a sex object or as a woman who should leave the big waves to men was disgusting. The World Surf League certainly comes across as an organization that is a major boys' club, deliberately ignoring Maya's triumphs over giant waves, even though she was outperforming many of the male surfers. Were you surprised at the extent to which they ignored her prowess?
Yeah, I was actually surprised because I had thought, maybe naively, that a female first is a terrific human accomplishment, and generally we have celebrated those. We've celebrated the first woman in space. We've celebrated the first woman up Mount Everest. We've celebrated, Amelia Earhart. So, eventually those individuals have been recognized, and I think in this case, what I didn't understand is that it was probably extremely difficult for those people to make those first ascents for women in history, and we didn't know behind the scenes actually what it took for that to happen. And that's what you're seeing in Maya's film is the struggle behind a female first, and it's probably much harder to make those accomplishments than we realize. So I was surprised, and because I think what a great story. Of course we celebrate female triumphs. We've done it historically, but I think this film helps you realize that it's actually been quite a struggle for many of those women to become recognized.
Stephanie, it must have been incredibly hard to pare down this documentary down to 95 minutes. Could you share with us how you worked with your editor to condense the miles of footage you must have had?
We edited this film for almost 3 years. We had some stops and starts because of COVID and personal things. The film was edited by Jordana Berg, who's a wonderful editor in Rio, and later by Shannon Kennedy in Boston, two brilliantly talented editors. So it's really their work shining as far as the editing in the film. As far as the process, it was my wonderful assistant editor, Tamiris Lorenzo, who is from Rio, and she watched all the footage. We had a huge amount of footage, and it was very difficult to pare it down. So she made the first selection of everything, and that selection was given to Jordana, and Jordana made a first cut of the film, which all of this took at least, a year and a half. And at that point, we had a rough cut, and we wanted to refine it further. So Jordana had to leave for another job, and Shannon Kennedy in Boston picked up the film. And, we continued working on shaping the story and the structure and the music and the timing and the pacing. And it was a long road. They worked very hard. I'm very proud of their work, and I think that the film is well edited, and it's really due to two extremely talented, very seasoned editors, Jordana Berg and Shannon Kennedy.
Maya and the Wave is making its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. Share exactly how you're feeling about that.
I am so excited to have Maya and the Wave premiering in Toronto. It's a filmmaker's dream. And, in my mind, there are 3 premiere festivals on planet Earth, Toronto, Cannes, and Sundance. And Toronto is one of the most exciting of those festivals, and it's really a dream to be selected. It's an honor, and we're just so excited to be here. We can't wait to share the movie. We've been working on it so long, and we can't wait to show it to people and finally have it out in the world. We're excited.
Hi, I'm Mayor John Tory, and you're listening to CIUT 89.5 FM. I'm old enough to remember when they called it U of T Radio.
From free events and celebrity sightings on TIFF's Festival Street King Street West for the rest of the year, everyone seems to be loving the in-person vibe at TIFF 2022.
Hi, what's your name?
Martine Tapascio.
And okay, first of all, are you from Toronto?
No, I'm from Barrie.
Barrie, Ontario. You're here for TIFF?
Yes.
Have you seen any films?
Any of the films here today? No, not yet.
What are you hoping to see today on King Street?
I'm hoping to see, I guess, the actors around here, like especially for The Glass Onion.
Okay, maybe like what? Daniel Craig, I think, is in it.
Yeah, Daniel Craig, Janelle Monáe, anyone else who's here too. But I love those two the most today. So yeah.
Well said. Last question for you. For yourself, what does TIFF mean to you?
A festival where movies from, I guess, all around the world get to be shown to the people of Toronto before anybody else.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for the interview.
Hello, what's your name?
Jason.
Jason, where are you from?
I'm from Scarborough.
From Scarborough. And so what brings you to downtown Toronto today?
Oh, we always follow TIFF, especially when my wife influences me to go there for TIFF, right? So, and I love taking pictures and videos, so I'm here right now.
Okay, and who are you hoping to see today?
Oh, I'm hoping to see Janelle Monáe and Edward Norton and reunite again with Daniel Craig because last 2019 I saw him here also at TIFF.
In 2019, how long have you been coming to TIFF?
Oh, start 2011. Yes.
This is my 5th year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, for us, and then 2019 has a big hype of the TIFF, and then you're planning ahead of next year, and then suddenly pandemic happened, right? So it's okay. Now we are happy we're back. So
we're back in person in 2022. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Hello, what's your name?
My name is Jing.
Hello, and what brings you to King Street on a beautiful sunny day like today?
Well, I'm here to finally get to see the cast of Knives Out, or aka Knives Out sequel, because last time I was here, I had to choose between them and Tom Hanks, so that's why I'm making up for it. That's why I'm here.
Okay, so are you hoping to see like Daniel Craig?
Daniel Craig, Rian Johnson, Catherine Hahn, basically anyone, everyone, hopefully they all show up.
How long have you been coming to TIFF?
I've been doing this since 2015.
2015, wow, that's longer than me. I started in 2018 covering TIFF.
Wow, impressive. But then pandemic happened and then everybody had to be away for 2 years, so good to be back.
For yourself, what does TIFF mean to you?
Just a chance to enjoy the atmosphere, trying to catch a movie, emerging filmmakers for myself personally, because I'm trying to pay attention to what's coming up in the local atmosphere, not just as much as I would love to join, also the Hollywood stuff, but I'm all about the local stuff as well. So.
Well said, well said. Thank you for your time.
No worries. Enjoy TIFF.
Hi, what's your name?
My name's Kathy.
Hello, Kathy. What are you here on King Street for? Why are you here?
I am here standing in line with my daughter. I have a ticket for Causeway, the premiere, which I'm very excited to see. My daughter was not able to get a ticket, so I'm standing in the rush line for her where she's hoping to get a ticket.
Okay, so TIFF 2022, we're back, we're in person after 2 years of a pandemic. How are you feeling about that?
I am really excited. This is my first film festival. My daughter is in the film industry. She has a company that does events and premieres, and she invited me. So I love movies. I am so excited. I've already seen a number of phenomenal movies, and I have a number of phenomenal movies lined up to see in the next couple days. So before I go back to my real life, I'm just thrilled to be here.
Any movies that you've seen so far stand out to you that have made an impression on you? Anything comes to mind?
Yes, we saw Emily, phenomenal. I know a little bit about Emily Bronte's story, but learned a lot more. Very interesting. Saw The Woman King, and just powerhouse action dynamic. Saw Bros, and Bros is a phenomenal movie. You will laugh, you will cry, and I'll recommend everything I've seen so far.
Last question for you. What does TIFF mean to you?
TIFF means an opportunity for people to come together, celebrate films, and for people in the film industry to showcase their talent, a place for new emerging filmmakers to come and make a name for themselves, people that wouldn't be known to get picked up by other studios. It's just a phenomenal opportunity for anyone who loves film, works in film, or is interested in film.
Amazing. Well said. Well done. Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Good evening and welcome. It's the opening night.
Tonight, we thank you. I am so humbled and so grateful to be here this evening.
I'm extremely excited to be here.
Thank you all for holy shit. There's a lot of y'all.
I'm very proud to be here tonight, and I'm so grateful that you joined us.
Don't stop till you get enough.
Hello, Toronto.
Happy Halloween, Michael.
Can you touch that, sis? Toronto, the best of them all.
If you're a film buff, the best place to watch films is TIFF.
I want to thank Toronto because you have always honored, celebrated, exalted female directors.
The warmth and the love that you gave me is something I will never forget in my life.
It's so exciting to be here at Toronto in this gorgeous theater.
This feels like Christmas Day.
Thanks to you for coming.
This is truly a very special evening for me.
This is why we do what we do, you know?
I love this festival and it's an honor to be back.
Behind me is what we call society, what we see in there every day, and what we have on the screen. Let's keep on doing movies about us. We're making pictures about what's happening today in society. Thank you for coming.
My name is Charles Officer, and I'm the writer and director of Invisible Essence, The Little Prince on CIUT 89.5 FM.
Coming up on this special broadcast, Mark Tara chats with award-winning producer Chris Birkett about the documentary Buffy Sainte-Marie, Carry It On.
Chris Birkett, hi, how are you?
Fine. I'm having a good time. How are you?
I am well. I am better now that I am speaking to you to talk about this new documentary that's part of TIFF 2022, Buffy Sainte-Marie, Carry It On. You are part of this documentary. What can you tell me about this film?
Well, actually, it's the second documentary made on the life story Buffy, which is an ongoing thing, obviously, because she's still with us. The first one was made by my wife, Joan Prowse. She made the official life story. It's called Buffy Sainte-Marie, a Multimedia Life. But they're just doing a new one now, as you just mentioned, made by White Pine Pictures. And funny enough, they've been my wife and White Pine have been communicating a lot, because there's some footage that she has from the early documentary which cannot be got again, because people in the footage have left or, departed or whatever. So it's a bit of a collaboration, which is really cool.
And you are part of this documentary. You're in the documentary, but I believe you're also working on the music.
Yeah, Buffy kind of insisted that I mix the music for the documentary, the music which consists of her performances, not the incidental music. I don't know who's doing that, but she wanted me, because I've been working with her since 1992 and we have a great relationship and we understand each other. She insisted that I actually was involved in the presentation of her as an artist, which is live concert mixes and all that sort of thing.
Is the film done? Have you seen it?
I've only seen director's rough cut. That's what I've been working to. It's kind of interesting because some of the songs have they're kind of a combination of various concerts, which is a real interesting thing for me to achieve. I had to combine the sound from a London concert with the sound from a Massey Hall concert with the sound from a New York concert, and make them all sit together, and sometimes actually join that sound onto the released CD version of the same song. So you can imagine what it was like, but it all worked out really well, and everybody's happy. So they're going with it.
Well said, and well done, well done.
Yeah, it's a techie thing, but it's not like songwriting, but it takes a lot of skill on Pro Tools, which is the system I'm using.
You've produced a number of Buffy Sainte-Marie's albums, including 2017's Medicine Songs, which includes the track Carry It On, which is the title of this documentary. Yeah. You mentioned earlier about meeting Buffy Sainte-Marie back in the early 90s. How did you meet Buffy Sainte-Marie originally?
Well, I met her in the office of Ensign Records in London. Ensign Records was a label run by Nigel Grange and Chris Hill. Nigel Grange is Lucian Grange's brother, and Lucian Grange is the CEO of Universal. So they're quite a powerful music family. I've been producing records for Nigel for some time. I was, in fact, the Ensign in-house producer, so I got to work with Sinead O'Connor and Bob Geldof and some of the Ensign acts. I worked with them. And then one day Nigel called me and said, you're going to laugh at this. He said, guess what, Chris? I've just signed a legend. And I got all excited. He said, I want you to produce it. And I said, great. Who is it? And he said, it's Buffy Sainte-Marie. And I said, who's that? Because I'm European, right? I'm from London, and I didn't know about Buffy and her work very much. And this is the early 90s we're talking about, right? And I didn't really know much about her because she's more, she's big in Canada and the States, but not a lot apart from the song "Up Where We Belong," which is kind of an international hit,
huge hit that she co-wrote.
Yeah, that's right. So Jack Nietzsche, I think, had a part to do in that, her ex. But I didn't really know who Buffy was, and so she flew over a couple of days later, and I met in the office, in Ensign office in London, and we got on really well. And then the interesting thing about this whole thing is that Buffy said, "Well, I live in Hawaii, and you live in London." She said, "This album's going to be difficult in terms of jet lag. I'm flying over here, I'm going to be zonked out for 4 days, and you're going to the same way, that way, it's going to be really difficult. So let's see if we can work out a way that we can start this album, without flying all over the place," which is great for the carbon footprint, by the way, So Buffy's always been environmentally conscious anyway. So anyway, she had a techie boyfriend called Roger Jacobs who lived in Hawaii. And I had a techie engineer called Ian Plested who worked at my studio in London. And so between them, me, Buffy, Roger and Ian, we worked out how to get Buffy's keyboard files all over to my studio in London from Hawaii. And this had never been done before. We were the first people to achieve any kind of music transfer over the pre-existing web. The server was called CompuServe. So that was not, that was the only... And it was done by modem. Remember the old modem things? It might be before your time, but it wasn't the information, digital information the way we know it. It was kind of a screeching sound came over the phone and it went to the machine. And so that was so Buffy sent the whole coincidence and likely stories, basic work in progress stuff that from the songs she had written. She sent that all over to me in London. It's all keyboard. It was a very keyboardy album, so it's all keyboards at the time. So I downloaded it. I mirrored her equipment in my studio in London, and then I burnt all that onto 24-track analog, which I had a machine there in my home studio. And then I took the tapes. Those days it was big, heavy reels of tape. I took them over to Hawaii, and Buffy did not have a 24-track machine to play the tape, so we went to Steely Dan's studio on Maui. And continued working on the album, vocals, drums, that sort of thing, So that's how the album was born on the web, and Billboard magazine did a big article on it because it was we were the first known people to actually start an album on the the pre-web.
Wow, trailblazers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we went down in history.
Chris Birkett, who knew? Who knew? Here's something that I personally did not know. Elvis Presley, Roberta Flack, Barbra Streisand, they all have something in common.
Oh, Until It's Time for You to Go, a Buffy Sainte-Marie song.
They've all recorded Buffy Sainte-Marie's music.
Yeah, exactly. Elvis did.
Elvis Presley to Barbra Streisand. Who knew? Who knew?
Well, it's Elvis actually was quoted as saying that "Until It's Time for You to Go" was his favorite love song. It's pretty cool.
And of course, she co-wrote that huge hit, "Up Where We Belong." Jennifer Warren and I think
Joe Cocker.
And Joe Cocker. Thank you. That was part of a huge movie. And what was it? Officer and a Gentleman?
Yeah, that's it. That movie was quite a hit, but the song was massive.
Huge.
Yeah, it really made a big wave for Buffy. And as you know, she's been a campaigner and a pioneer for Indigenous rights ever since she started singing. And before so, and she never really people really never took her seriously because they couldn't believe that a pretty young Indigenous girl could have such strong political views. And so she wasn't taken seriously for a long time. She even got blacklisted for a while by the Nixon administration. So it's her music was banned from the U.S. radio play in the U.S. is banned for some time. So it was, she had it tough, but she didn't give up. She kept going, and now she's beginning to be recognized for what she is, and because of truth and reconciliation that's happening here in Canada, her time has come. So I'm very happy for her. I feel really, really grateful to have the honor to work with her too.
So again, the album Medicine Songs in 2018, it won the Juno Award for Indigenous Album of the Year and won the Best Folk Album of the Year at the 2018 Indigenous Music Awards. You were instrumental in that because you produced that record.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you to have created an album of the year? What does that mean to you? Because you are a musician, you're a producer, but you're also an artist as well.
Yeah, thank you. I was obviously very happy to I was at the Juno Awards when she beat Drake. He was supposed to get it and she got it. So I was really pleased about that. Not that I got anything against Drake, but I felt that Buffy deserved it. And but it wasn't the first Juno that was won for the work we did together. Also, we had the Juno for Running for the Drum. And also put a Polaris Prize for Power in the Blood. So it's just a few prizes been notched up by Buffy, and it's really good. I'm very happy for her. I met my wife, the woman that I live with now, Joan Prowse. I met her because of Buffy Sainte-Marie, because Joan, as I mentioned earlier in this interview, she produced and directed Buffy's first official life story documentary. Now, they released that in 2009, I think it was, with the album that me and Buffy had just made called Running for the Drum. This is the predecessor to Power in the Blood. And I was playing guitar for Buffy at the time, and we played at Massey Hall for the release. And coincidentally, the release also was also part of the release was the official life story documentary. So they did a double package, the album and a DVD. And so Joan, the person that had been calling me since 2008 with questions about how I did this and that with Buffy, to put into the documentary, I finally met her in person in the green room at Massey Hall after the show. And then we stayed in touch and fell in love, and that's how I'm in Canada. So I'm in Canada because of Buffy, basically. It's a love story.
When audiences see this new documentary, Buffy Sainte-Marie, Carry It On, what do you hope audiences come away with? What would you like to see audiences come away with after seeing that film?
I'd like to see them come away with increased awareness of the need to end separation on this planet. This is one of the chief problems with humanity, is that we're separate. We don't accept people from other races, other color, other cultures, other social status. We're all separate, and it's separatism, I would call it, is the chief evil. And I think one of the things that this movie will do, it'll help to wake people up to the fact that we need to be inclusive in our appreciation of humanity. If you look at this planet from outer space, you do not see political boundaries and cultural boundaries and social boundaries. You see a one humanity living and breathing on a beautiful geosphere globe, and that's the way we need to start thinking like that, and I think this movie might help people to do that, because me and Buffy are on a similar path. She introduced me to some wonderful teachings which have changed my life. I won't go into that now, but and that's so we have the same. We're kind of doing the same job, and she's a lot further on than I am because she's been doing it longer. But it's the same thing, and the aim is to make humanity is to get across to humanity that truth, beauty, and goodness, and compassion and love. Love is the chief energy of the universe, which makes everything work. And we kind of block that love in our ordinary human relationships. There's a blockage to it, and you can't block it. You can't block energy, because if you do, it's like blocking water in a river. It will create huge pressure, and that pressure is dis-ease. Disease. Disease is nothing other than dis-ease, not at ease. And so we have to let that love flow, and that's one of the ways to do it. I mean, John Lennon sang about it, so it's not new. It's not news, but we have to be reminded of this as a human race. We tend to divide ourselves all the time. So I think hopefully this movie will get that message across to people, and also I think on a personal level, it will inspire some people to get on the evolutionary path, which we're on anyway, but to get back on it and try and be better at what they do. Because Buffy's a great example of that. She's a prime example of beautiful spirit that's manifested and has grown through adverse conditions into a gorgeous flower. A bit like how a lotus works. The lotus roots are in the mud, dark mud, but it climbs through the water, and this beautiful flower comes out at the top, and that's kind of what we are,
Chris Birkett, well said. Powerful words.
That's how I feel. So,
thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being on the show as always, Chris Birkett.
Thanks very much. Anytime.
Hold your head up, lift the top of your mind, put your eyes on the earth, lift your heart to your own home planet. What do you see? What is your attitude? Are you here to improve or damn it? Look right now, and you will see we're only here by the skin of our teeth as it is. So take heart and take care of your link with life. And carry it on. is. So take heart and take care of your link with life. It's beautiful if you got the sense to take care of your source of perfection. Mother Nature, she's the daughter of God and the source of all protection. Look right now, and you will see she's only here by the skin of her teeth, as it is. So take heart and take care of your link with life. Oh, carry it on. Keep saying, carry it on. And playing, carry it on. Keep on praying, carry it on. We're saying, come on, keep playing. I'm praying, carry it on.
CIUT 89.5 Toronto.
Coming up on this special broadcast of Team CIUT at TIFF 2022, film critic Daniel Garber will be sharing his interview with Gail Maurice, the director of the Canadian LGBT film ROSIE.
Hi, this is Daniel Garber, the movies for CulturalMining.com and CIUT 89.5 FM. It's the 1980s in a working-class neighborhood of Montreal. Fred is an artist whose day job is working at a sex store. Adopted as a child, she ran away from home at 16 and never looked back. Now, she's best friends with Flo and Mo, two streetwalkers who make up her current family. But she's thrown for a loop when a social worker shows up at her door with a 6-year-old girl who says Fred is her closest living relative. What? She tries to explain she's close to eviction, living hand to mouth. She's a francophone while Rosie only speaks English, and she knows absolutely nothing about raising a child. But who can resist a cutie pie like Rosie? ROSIE is a new feel-good comedy drama about life on the edge in 1980s Montreal. It deals with chosen families, marginalized groups, homelessness, and Indigenous and queer people in urban settings. Both Rosie and Fred were adopted as Indigenous kids into white families. The film is directed by actor and filmmaker Gail Maurice. It may be her first feature, but you've probably seen her unforgettable roles on TV shows like Trickster and in movies like Night Raiders. ROSIE is having its world premiere at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, on September 9th at 8 p.m. And I'm very pleased to have Gail here via Zoom to tell us more about ROSIE. Hi, Gail. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Thank you.
ROSIE, your first feature is set in Montreal in the 1980s with much of the dialogue in French. Why this time and place, and where were you in 1984?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I set it in Montreal in the 80s, and in 84 I was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan at the university, and I was coming out as a lesbian woman, and I never realized that I was, because I grew up in northern Saskatchewan in a Métis village, and I never had the opportunity to explore anything of my sexuality in that way. So why I chose to write a bilingual film is because my language is Michif, which is a mixture of Cree and French. There are only a little over 1,000 speakers in the world, and I'm one of them. So I wanted to highlight that and be able to talk about that in Q&As. Not a lot of people in Canada or in the world, but in Canada as well, know anything about the Michif language. And I wanted to say that I wrote a bilingual film because I wanted to highlight that. Part of my culture is I'm half French and I'm half Cree, which is why I have Maurice as my last name. And I wanted to set it in Montreal because themes in my films are isolation, alienation, and family and identity. And I wanted Rosie, the little girl, to be thrust into a world which she not only didn't understand with the language, but it was also very alien to her. Like she wouldn't be able to read the French signage, for example, and the characters, Fred, Flo, and Mo, all sound different than her. So that was also part of why I set it in Montreal.
Rosie is a 6-year-old girl who has a terrible fear of abandonment. The worst thing that can happen to her is to be left alone. So she adopts a family of her own, including Fred, Flo, and Mo, who are sex workers. So what is meant by a chosen family? What's a chosen family?
Chosen family is basically whoever, if for example, Rosie, is a product of the 60s scoop. So, and the records to find her family were all destroyed. She has no choice but to embrace and survive, and she does in the best possible way by finding true love in her chosen family. And that's basically what it's about. Is life. Sometimes life. We're not a lot. We don't have the opportunity to spend our adult days or any days with our biological family. So what we do, and we're it's only normal, natural, I guess, where we want family in our lives. And as adults, as children, we find chosen family if we don't have biological families. I just wanted to show that people can love each other no matter where they come from and their backgrounds. That's why I wrote the characters as I did. And I just wanted to correct as well, Flo and Mo are not trans. Flo and Mo are simply Flo and Mo. They, in my language, in Cree, Michif, there's no gender, there's no he or she. So I've spent a lot of times in the past couple of years trying to define who they are for people that were always trying to put them in a box, and they don't belong in a box. They're simply Flo and Mo, two spirits, human beings who happen to love wearing women's clothes, and that's from my Indigenous perspective, which is how the story was written.
Rosie is very good at making friends, including a guy named Jigger, who she sees lying on the sidewalk. He's Indigenous and he sleeps outdoors, but she sees Jigger and the movie presents him in a different way. He's not portrayed as lost or ruined or pitiful, but entirely differently. So you talk about the character Jigger, and why is this portrayal so important?
To me, I love Jigger. He's one of my favorite characters in the movie, and I always part of the themes of Rosie is there are no people that are disposable. There are no people that are less worthy than anyone else. Everyone has beauty, everyone has power, and everyone has strength. To me, Jigger is the strongest in his cultural identity. He's the strongest person in Rosie's life, and he's also the one that's most grounded, which is why I have him sitting on the ground for most of the film. And it's to symbolically show that he is connected to who he is, and he's sharing that knowledge with Rosie. And in no way is he pitiful, in no way is he less than, in no way is he weak. He's actually very strong.
The film's called Rosie, but it could just as well be called Fred, since it's just as much about her. She's wonderfully portrayed by Melanie Bray. So why did you cast her, and where did the character Frederic or Fred come from?
So Rosie, the feature, originated, like how it began was I made a film, Rosie the Short, and it screened at the Imaginative Film Festival in 2018. so at the time, the Imaginative and the Harold Greenberg Fund were coming up with an inaugural screenwriting program, and they invited Rosie to be part of that. So I was able to develop the short into a feature film. And Fred is based on my partner in life as well. So I just took the qualities of my partner Melanie and infused them in Fred. And I wrote the short in Melanie's parents' home in Montreal in the closet. Her dad had a closet which he made into an office. I just shut myself in there for a few days, and that's how the short was born. And from that, I was able to expand on her character, and I wanted to make her an artist that took other people's junk and made beauty out of it and made art out of it, which again is a metaphor and the theme of the film is there is no trash. There's actually beauty in trash. There's beauty all around us. Yeah, Melanie Bray is also the co-producer, and she very much was part of the creative process. She helped me with the casting, and we were able to do chemistry reads. We found Rosie, the little girl, by going to First Nations communities in Ontario, and I was able to do readings with Melanie and Karis, who plays Rosie.
Well, there's a scene, speaking of Rosie and Fred, there's a scene in the film where Rosie is literally torn from Fred's arms. It could have been taken from a painting by Kent Monkman. And anyone in Canada who pretends they don't know about the horrors of residential schools is lying. But another issue is less well known and runs through the core of your film. I'm talking about the 60s scoop. So can you explain to listeners what the 60s scoop was and its effect on Indigenous families, languages, cultures, and how it affects the characters in your film?
Yeah, so for example, Rosie's mom was part of the 60s scoop, and it also shows so the 60s scoop is basically the government gave the rights to even doctors and social services to actually go and physically take children from Indigenous families, Indigenous homes. Why I wrote this is I have two siblings that were forcibly taken from my mother's arms right after birth without my mom's consent. So, and I wanted to pay homage to these children that were taken away and who will never have an opportunity. I'm going to cry, sorry. Who will never have an opportunity to know their families. And so I wanted to be able to talk about this in a way that was seen through Rosie's experience, because Rosie will never have that chance to find her family because of destroyed records, and which is why Jigger is also such a beautiful character for me, is because she's that connection to her culture and her heritage. The 60s Foods has denied so many people the ability to be connected to their culture, to their language, to their people, and it's this show is written for those survivors, that they're doing the best that they can, and that's also part of why, they have no choice but to have a chosen family to support them in life.
Finally, despite the serious topics it deals with and the fact that most of the characters live precarious lives, Rosie is essentially a fun comedy and a feel-good movie. So why did you make Rosie essentially a light movie, not a heavy one?
There's much laughter in Indigenous communities. For example, at a wake, at a funeral, where it's not morbid. We actually have 3-day wakes. We play cards, we tell stories, we laugh. Just because there's sadness in the world, it doesn't mean you can't have laughter. And that's exactly why I made Rosie. It has poignant pieces where you're crying, but then the next moment you're laughing. It's because that's how I grew up. and there's hardships in life. We're kicked and we're beaten, but at the same time, we can laugh about it because that's just the way we are. We're resilient, and we can take a licking, but keep on ticking.
Well, it's a great movie, and thanks so much for talking with me, Gail.
Oh, thank you.
Gail Maurice's first feature film, ROSIE, is having its world premiere at TIFF on September 9th. This is Daniel Garber the Movies, each Saturday morning on CIUT 89.5 FM and on my website, culturalmining.com.
The sound of your city. CIUT 89.5, Toronto.
Thanks for listening, everyone, to CIUT at TIFF 2022. Mark, how can people find out more about Rainbow Country?
Thanks, Donna G. You can find me and Rainbow Country right here on CIUT, Tuesdays, 11 p.m.
And Daniel Garber, where can people find you on CIUT?
Thanks, Donna. You can hear my movie reviews and interviews on CIUT Critic Circle on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m., on Twitter at Cultural Mining, and on my website, culturalmining.com.
I'm Donna G from The More the Merrier. You can find me Sundays, 1 p.m. on CIUT.FM. My socials are at TMTM with Donna G on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Taking us out is a song from In the Mood for Love. It's called Yumeji's Theme.